you may be listening to us from here on this beautiful planet of ours. This is Michael Cross with another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions, where we vow to explore issues, I'm not going to say a bit deeper, I'm going to say a lot deeper than you're going to find them explored in corporate media. And today, we are going to explore the issue of creativity and psychopathy. But before I begin, I encourage people to come and check my website out, where I deal with these kinds of subjects, at michaelcross.net, and also my YouTube station at, Michael Cross, and that'll be the one that will come up that'll say Michael Cross and then / Freedom from Conscience, the title of my book series. And a lot of my previous shows are located there. So check it out, subscribe, and share some of the information if you like what you see. Anyway, like I said, I want to deal with this issue of creativity and psychopathy. And what inspired me on this was an article that I found. And it was in let's see the exact date there. Yes, April 26th in the UK Daily Mail. And the title of that article, if you want to go read it yourself, is, "Are you creative? Then you're probably a psychopath. Dark personality traits play a key role in making people more artistic." Now, the thing is, the reason why I wanted to deal with this is I have studied this topic of politics and psychopathy, relationships and psychopathy, and I've tried to deal with this in a balanced approach. Why is it that we still have psychopaths? If it's such a destructive personality disorder, you would think that it would have been eliminated by the process of evolution. It hasn't. At the same time, you would, if you don't really get into evolution as being the 100% explanation for things, then why do we have people created as psychopaths? That doesn't make sense, does it? Well, the thing is that you have to look at it in a comprehensive manner. And I've noticed that a lot of commentators on psychopaths out there, one of the first things they will say is that psychopaths cannot be creative. Now, the interesting thing is I've found a few experts in the field who say the opposite. They will actually say, they display a certain type of creativity. Now, the thing is, I want to address this whole idea from the people who are saying that there cannot be creativity if you don't have high levels of empathy. Now, while I believe that empathy can be a catalyst to being creative, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think all creativity is the same, or it ceases to be creative, doesn't it? If every creative action is the same, it's not creative. So, the thing is, I think we have to really kind of get into the idea of what is creativity, and then look at the traits that might actually promote creativity within creative psychopaths, okay? So, let's just begin. I think actually one of the most general definitions of creativity is something that would encompass making something new or something that's groundbreaking or stands out from the norm. Okay? I mean, if you just copy, if there's, let's say, you copy a picture of the Mona Lisa, and you do it fantastically. I mean, you get every single detail down. Is that creative? No, it's copying something that someone else created. Now, if you can add something to it, I don't know, make the Mona Lisa into some sort of alien or something, that could be creative. That could be interesting. But then that would be something that would be different. So creativity does not necessarily mean that all artists out there, all performers out there are creative. because they aren't. They may be able to copy something. They may integrate a slight difference in the way they do it, but that does not mean that they are necessarily highly creative people. So if you see someone reenact something that was, I should just say this. If someone can play Wagner on a violin really well, okay, or Beethoven on a piano, and they could do it wonderfully. That doesn't mean they're creative. It means they're talented, okay? Creativity and talented can be two different things. So what is it that would enable a psychopath who, I point out many times, does not totally lack empathy, but has it on a diminished scale? Okay, it might be something to the effect that if you're on Wi-Fi, and I just got back from a lot of traveling around the world recently, and believe me, Wi-Fi becomes very important when you're trying to connect on the internet. And the thing is, you go to one location, and the little bars that are down there at the bottom right hand of your screen, well, let's say there's 5 bars. Yeah, I think there's 5 there. Yeah, there's 5 bars. I never even noticed that. Anyway, and let's pretend the 5th bar means you're a highly empathetic person. I mean, you're just tapped in there and ready to go. You can feel what other people feel really easily. The 4th bar, let's just say the 5th bar would be like if you scored, 0 to 5 on a psychopathic scale. Okay, so you got a lot of empathy, or at least you don't have a lack of empathy. Now, a 4, you're still there, very high. A 3, maybe you're kind of average or so. A 2, you don't have that much empathy. Think about it. You go on the internet when you got a 2, and it takes a little while for that internet page to load. It takes a little while for, you can't play some games and stuff. I mean, you've got very poor connection. And a 1, it's there, but oh my gosh, it's going to take forever even to download your email. So the thing is, that's where I would place psychopathy. If you score on the psychopathic scale, which is a 0 to 40 measure, and you score, let's say, a 20, I would say you're probably on like that 2nd bar. A little higher than 20, maybe you're on the 1. Maybe if you score a 40, you're down there with nothing or barely anything measurable, but it is a scale. And so you can have psychopathic traits and still be getting a score of even 15 or 20. Anything above 20, you're starting to push into the range of psychopathy. Depending on which country you are, 25 or 30 labels you a psychopath. Now, let's take a look at what the article said here, and I think it's quite interesting that what they said in the UK article was that psychopathy can, quote, they say it can help them make bold choices that are often associated with the best art or performances. Now, bold choices, that can be very interesting. Because it keeps going on here. Writing in the journal Personality and Individual Differences, the researchers said, we argue that emotional disinhibition in the form of psychopathic boldness is actually integral to some creative personalities and functionally related to the creative process. That reminds me, if you get a chance, look up my interview with Dr. Scott Lilienfeld. He's an expert on psychopaths, and he's dealt with psychopathic boldness. And you can look, the title of that interview was Dr. Scott Lilienfeld, Psychopaths, Heroism, and Fearless Dominance. Okay, the idea that sometimes it's heroic people score high on psychopathic traits, and a lot of times that's because they don't conform to the norm in society. Even though he doesn't talk about it, I don't think, I haven't read his book, but I saw the lecture that is on the internet. Zimbardo, when he's talking about breaking forth against the social norms to do something heroic. I think his book's, I can't remember the name, the Lucifer Effect or something like that. It has the name Lucifer in it. And the idea that people that just kind of conform and do what they're told every day are going to be less likely to break social norms when it comes to helping someone. And that is a very important factor that it's kind of surprising that because it goes counterintuitive to what we would normally think. But again, check up that interview I did, the Dr. Scott Lilienfeld, Psychopaths, Heroism, and Fearless Dominance. You can just Google that if you want, and you'll find it. Anyway, now, what I would like to do is go over some of the personality traits. I'm going to choose 5 of them. And let's see here. My Skype went out a little earlier, so I have to go back into the site itself and Psychopath test. You can check out this test here. Just type in Arkanside test for psychopathy. It's quite interesting. The questions seem to be the same questions I've seen on many psychological pages dealing with psychopathy. But I'm going to choose 5 of these that I think could be like the pro-social aspects of psychopathy. Okay, not the negative ones that could actually hinder someone in their personal progress and their creativity, and also, of course, are usually associated with all those nasty traits that we think of when it comes to, politicians who are psychopathic or high in psychopathic tendencies. But also, we got to look at the 5 that could be negative in one respect. I think all personality traits are a double-edged sword, and which could be positive. So, let's take a look here. Now, there is first the topic of grandiose self-worth, and that refers to the idea that the person, they're kind of like, they're seeing themselves with this inflated view of their abilities and their self-worth. They're self-assured. They believe in who they are. This kind of goes into narcissism too, which I'm going to talk about in a future program in regards to this presidential race. Now, yes, psychopaths tend to be arrogant. They tend to see themselves as superior and so forth. But ultimately, you've got to look at the fact that also is involved in that is they have a belief in themselves. Okay? Now, whereas this could be seen as something negative in a relationship if you're married or dating a psychopath, and they're very arrogant about them being kind of the center of the universe. The thing is, this also can have something to do with creativity in that if they believe that in themselves so strongly, they're going to be more likely to do things that are different. Okay? Now, I think it's very interesting. I heard this one educational expert speaking one time, and he said that if you ask a group of 6-year-olds what they do best, they'll say, oh, I can draw pictures. Oh, I can dance. Oh, I can sing. And then you ask those people when they are 16 years old what they can do best, and very few of them will write those things down. It's not because suddenly they've just chosen different things to be good at. It's because society has taught them from a very early age that if you're not on TV, if the powers that be have not chosen you as the example of the best, then why even bother? You see, we have a society in which many times we think, oh, well, if someone's on TV, they must be the best. If a certain musical style or a certain instrument or whatever, or a certain book is out there and it's getting a lot of attention on TV, that automatically means it's the best. And that is not true. See, I thought about that when I was like, oh my gosh, I must have been like 10 years old, and the teacher was saying, this book's a classic. It's recognized as one of the best books ever written. I read it. it was pretty good. But then I thought, there must be millions of books out there. Who chose which books are the best? And then as you get older, well, if you think about it, most people don't ever give it any thought. If you get older, you start thinking, well, wait a minute. It's certain people who have influential positions in education, media, society in general, and they're the ones who tell us what songs, what paintings, whatever else is the best. Okay, I made reference to the Mona Lisa just because I wanted to bring up something that everyone had visual image of. Now, is that painting one of the best ever done? I don't know. I think it's ultimately up to the individual to decide whether that is one of the best paintings ever done. But the thing is that the kids, when they reach 16, have been thoroughly indoctrinated into the idea that this is what's best. This is what wins. It can involve talent shows even. It doesn't have just to be the mainstream corporate media. It can be talent shows that will, someone gets votes over someone else. The people that don't get all, the highest votes, they just kind of give up. Psychopaths are not as likely to give up. They don't respect the media. They don't respect authority figures. They don't respect the decisions made by the experts. So in that sense, it's an advantage to have psychopathic tendencies if you are to pursue the things that you feel are better or the best. So the thing is that if you have a situation in a society in which everyone just kind of agrees on a consensus basis and chooses what is and what isn't of quality, then that's not a very creative society either. And so when someone does come along and say, hey, I think I have something that's better, then obviously that person may score high in psychopathic abilities because it's hard to go up against the norms. As Nietzsche said, it's very difficult to be an individual. It's very difficult to go against the tribe. But those that do will gain a certain level of respect for themselves. So anyway, let's go on here. Another trait, need for stimulation or proneness to boredom. Okay? Now, what's interesting about that is that this means that they're going to be more likely to go after novel or thrilling or exciting stimulation. That means they're going to be taking chances, looking for new adventures. And of course, this is associated with creativity. Okay? Yeah, sure, they have low self-discipline. And they often will give up on task. That's mentioned here. But ultimately, they are the kind of people who will start something. They will try finding something to break the dull monotony that may exist in modern society. And so again, a person who scores low on psychopathy, they may get bored too, but they're going to be less likely to break new barriers. Okay, they're going to go out against what is considered proper or decent. I've noticed people say that art that comes from highly religious people tends not to be as creative. Now, it used to be back in, come on, you just got back from Rome. There's a lot of art, hundreds and hundreds of years old, they have on display there. That's really, fantastic art. However, if you're highly religious nowadays, you're going to have self-imposed rules. That could be, if you're a photographer, you're not going to be as likely to involve anything that's dark. Okay? I don't mean black and white photography. I mean a dark theme, some sort of gothic type theme or something like that. You're not probably going to involve that much nudity. in your art projects. You're not probably going to show things that are disturbing to some people. So you're going to be very, very mainstream. Now, when you consider that society deems something different to be creative, remember I made the difference between talented and creative, then obviously the person who's willing to break the norms is going to get the attention and be seen as being unique and creative. And that, again, could be someone who displays these pro-social psychopathic tendencies. And again, I could say pro-social in the sense that, some people are going to say, oh, she is so fantastic. Look what she's willing to blah, blah, blah. And then that person will, but to another person, someone may say, that's very offensive. I don't like this kind of art, and that sort of thing. How could such a person, display such painting or artwork? Well, if you're psychopathic, you don't really care about what the critics say. And you continue, and you're not going to be one of those people that's just going to kind of give up as time goes on. You're going to continue. Now, of course, you need that narcissistic supply. You're going to want people to say, hey, you did a fantastic job here, because that is a part of psychopathy. But, still, you're talking about traits that most people see as negative. Okay? Psychopathy and narcissism, people see those as negative. But yet, at the same time, who do we celebrate? Okay, what characters on television, what books and so forth do we celebrate? Now, another one is a lack of remorse or guilt. Now, again, this goes into psychopaths have no concern for societal norms or the culture. In other words, they're not bound to limits. Now, again, that can be very bad if you're dealing with criminality or you're dealing with these kinds of ideas when it comes to maybe being not the best person to be in a relationship with. Not saying that in every case. I'm just saying that seems to be what everyone focuses on. But the thing is that a lack of a sense of guilt is a good thing when it comes to creativity, because guilt has been instilled in 98% of the population. This sense that, it comes from mom and dad saying, don't do this. And you internalize this when you're a little kid. And, you feel bad because you've done something to make mom and dad feel bad. And mom and dad to a 3 and 4-year-old is God. Okay? So you've made mom and dad unhappy and sad, and you internalize that, and you're like, oh, I'm such a bad person. Until you get some sort of confirmation that now you do something good to compensate or to rectify the situation. Then mom and dad say, thank you very much. Yay, you're a good kid. And then, of course, that gets projected onto your teachers, your Sunday school teachers, rabbis, imams, whatever, when you are young. And then it gets projected onto the general society. So most people, if they do something that would be considered provocative, would feel shame. They would feel guilt. Oh my gosh, I've made people feel like, bad. I've made people feel like I'm a bad person, or I am immoral, or I have done something that is distasteful. And the thing is, when it comes to creativity, of course, you're also breaking new bounds, and that's going to get a lot of negativity. But the thing, I'm not saying that every time someone breaks the bounds that that's necessarily good, but you can see now where maybe a psychopath would be more likely to do something that suddenly catches people's attention, and then people are thinking, how come no one else thought about that? How come they how could they have written a book like this? It's so different than other books. Okay? Well, obviously it's because they don't care about the reaction. They want some positive reaction and feedback for that narcissistic supply, but they're not concerned with people that are going to be critical and say, oh, I think this is to this or to that. So in that sense, a psychopathic person has an advantage over a quote-unquote normal person. So again, not everyone who has these kinds of tendencies I've been talking about now are necessarily psychopath, but it is a psychopathic trait, something that's listed in there. So again, you could score higher than average. Now, another trait is the idea of realistic, realistic a lack of realistic long-term goals. Now, how in the world does that fit into psychopathy and creativity? Easy. Do you realize that, there's probably, I would say, people have ideas. Someone that has an idea for writing a book, for instance. There may be, let's say, out of 100 people, maybe, I'm just making this up, maybe 30 of them in 100 come up with an idea on, it'd be really neat if someone would write a certain book with a certain theme. But of those 30 people, it's not even going to be 1% that actually will sit down and write an outline of this proposed book. Let's pretend that instead of that 30 people, we now go down to 0.1% of that original 100. Okay? So maybe 1 in 1,000 people actually sits down, and I hope I did my math right there. If I didn't, I'll blame it on Common Core. Anyway, you got, let's say one out of 1,000 actually writes the idea down in such a way that here's my outline. Now, out of that group, only a tiny percentage are going to actually start writing a rough draft. And then out of that group, there's going to be an even tinier percentage that after it's done will actually submit it to some sort of publisher. So ultimately what we wind up with, still we get millions of books because we got 7 billion people on this planet. But most books never get published. And the vast majority of ideas for books never come to fruition. They never actually even get written down on paper. Or, I guess it should be more modern, never wind up in a Word program or something. But the thing is that anyone will tell you that when it comes to writing, it's the people that are the most persistent that get published. It's the people that really, 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 go out there. And if it doesn't get published, by golly, they're going to publish it themselves. Okay? And if they do publish it themselves, the ones that really will try to promote themselves will at least get some sales. But ultimately, very, 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 very few books that are written will wind up on the daily talk show on TV. And often that's because they're the author is in some way associated with a publishing firm that may be owned by one of the big networks that will put him or her on. So, again, a person with high psychopathic ability just doesn't listen when people tell them, why do you want to write? Why do you want to be an artist? Why are you continuing with this whole music thing that you've got going? Be realistic. Put your time into doing this, or this. See the point? Okay? The people that can just basically give the finger to those naysayers, okay, are the ones who may have psychopathic traits that enable them to do such a thing. So that is a positive side there that could be encouraging. Now, another one, impulsivity. The idea of not really, and that's related to this, you don't consider the consequences. I'm sure that all of you, now think about this. Have you ever written something on, Facebook or some sort of social media, And then a few minutes later, you're going, oh my gosh, I should not have done that. And then you run back and then you open it up and someone's already responded and quoted you. So therefore you can't take it back. You're stuck and you feel like, oh great. Now everyone's going to think I'm an idiot. If you have a higher level of psychopathy, you're not going to necessarily feel that way. You're going to maybe think to yourself, I don't care. I'm just going to do it. And you do something just at the spur of the moment. And maybe that's what it takes to, break a boundary somewhere that does get recognized as being creative. So maybe sometimes what you had in mind changes. I've talked to a lot of people that have written books and they'll say, oh, I know this for a fact with myself even, that you do an outline for a book. And then as you're writing, all of a sudden, for one reason or another, you write in a scene. And you go into a lot of detail and you just continue. And then afterwards, maybe you look at it and go, maybe I should get rid of this scene. Maybe it's gory. Maybe it's sexual. Maybe it's in some way other way disturbing to some people. And I think actually the creative person, or at least the psychopathic one, is going to think, I'm going to leave that in there because I like it. Why not get people thinking? And whereas more conventional people will look at it and erase it and start over. So again, a higher level of psychopathic traits can help in the creative process. Now, I've gone into this with my own personal analysis, just kind of using the introduction from the article talking about creativity and psychopathy as just a springboard to go into this. And again, this is my personal opinion. But I think you can find that psychopathy and creativity are not necessarily exclusive of one another, no matter what. When people say, oh, psychopaths just copy, they can't think of anything original. And then you hear people say, oh, so-and-so is a psychopath, and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, they did this and this and this, which was really unusual, whether it was their leadership style, whether it was their artistic style. So ultimately, I think we actually have to think that, yes, part of breaking boundaries is an area where psychopaths can do quite well. And so I just want to leave that with you in an analysis of, creativity itself. Because I think ultimately our society is becoming more homogenized, not in a racial sense or anything, but more in a cultural sense, where we're all just kind of encouraged to be bland consumers, people that just watch TV and get their ideas from there, or we don't share things we see a really neat post on Facebook and you open it up, you're thinking of sharing it, but when you open it up and you see that only 5 people have shared it, you're going, oh, maybe I shouldn't share this. Our social media encourages a conformity. Even though nowadays we have so many avenues for creativity and breaking through and exploring new ideas and opening up new vistas, people are becoming less likely to do so. And it might take a little bit of this pro-social psychopathic tendencies that many people have, even though they're a minority of the population, that still comes out to a lot of people, to actually shake things up a bit and give us something that will kind of stand in the way of this flood of corporate, consumeristic, social cohesion. Okay? So that's why I bring this up and just encourage you, even if you're not psychopathic, but you have some of these kinds of traits, nourish them. Okay? It doesn't mean you're going to suddenly turn into this vile, horrible person. It's just on some of the traits, nourish them. Try to ask yourself, why you hesitate to do something. that is creative. Just do it. Ask yourself why it is that since you're not the best at this and this and this, you should just give up and just become a spectator. Okay? I mean, I'm going to use a sports analogy in closing. Look, you get millions of middle-aged and younger men watching sports programs, and they get really into it. And they memorize scores, and they know more names of football or basketball players and what their scores are and their history than they know of their own cultural history. And they just think about if instead of on the weekends putting so much effort into that, they maybe turn the TV off and go jogging. Or go and take the family out into the woods and do something in nature, which is real. I mean, instead of watching someone play soccer, play it yourself. Go out and kick a ball yourself. Instead of watching someone in a swimming tournament, go to the pool or the river or the ocean or whatever where people are swimming and go swimming. And instead of watching a show about someone out in the woods, if you live near the woods or, the desert for that matter or whatever, go out there and explore it yourself. It's time not to be spectators in life when the world has so much to offer and yet we bury ourselves in front of an iPhone or a computer screen. Okay? That could really encourage a lot of creativity right there. Anyway, heaven knows we need more creativity in this society, that's for sure.